Afghanistan's mountains are sharp and wild. The valleys run deep, sheltering villages that have stood for centuries. In 2001, American planes roared overhead, launching a war that would last 20 years. The aim was to end terror after September 11th. Afghanistan's people knew hardship and survival. They had fought off invaders before, from the British to the Soviets to each other. By 2021, the United States would leave Afghanistan, ending a long, difficult chapter. The United States entered Afghanistan with three clear goals: destroy al-Qaeda, remove the Taliban, and help build a new Afghan government. President Bush promised justice and support for the Afghan people. NATO allies joined, and billions were pledged to rebuild schools, hospitals, and roads. At first, it seemed the US could succeed where the Soviets failed, ending a war, not getting stuck in it. But over time, the mission grew harder, and the clarity of those first days faded. The first months of the war saw dramatic victories. The US worked with Afghan allies called the Northern Alliance to force the Taliban out of power. By December 2001, Kabul had fallen. Osama bin Laden and his fighters were on the run. The Taliban leadership fled to Pakistan. Images on TV showed Afghan women casting off their burqas. Journalists shared stories of reopened schools and thousands of Afghan refugees returning home. American and NATO soldiers were welcomed in some regions with smiles and open hands. For a moment, it seemed that Afghanistan could change. The first interim government was formed with Hamid Karzai as leader. The United Nations held talks in Bonn, Germany, where Afghan factions discussed a new future. Billions of dollars in aid flowed into the country. International experts arrived, ready to help rebuild. But even in those days of hope, the road ahead was unclear. Many local leaders still held power far from Kabul. There were reports of violence, corruption, and revenge killings. Yet for many Afghans and Americans, the early years felt like a step toward peace. Afghanistan has a long history of resisting outsiders. The British Empire tried 3 times to control it in the 19th and early 20th centuries and failed each time. In the 1980s, the Soviet Union invaded and fought a bloody 10-year war, only to leave in defeat. Each invader discovered that Afghanistan's mountains and valleys could not be easily tamed. The country is a patchwork of tribes and ethnic groups: Pashtuns, Tajiks, Hazaras, Uzbeks, and more. Each group has its own leaders, customs, and languages. Local loyalty is often stronger than loyalty to a distant capital. For centuries, Afghan rulers have struggled to unite the country under one government. This deep division made the US mission harder. Some tribes welcomed American help, hoping for protection or aid. Others mistrusted all foreigners, remembering past betrayals and violence. Old feuds, sometimes hundreds of years old, shaped what happened on the ground. Afghanistan's memory of past wars ran deep. Many Afghans saw the US as just the latest in a long line of outsiders. They knew that foreign armies often came with promises, but usually left with little gained. At first, the United States focused on killing or capturing terrorists. Special forces hunted al-Qaeda in the mountains, often with help from Afghan fighters. But by 2002 and 2003, the mission changed. The United States and its allies began to focus on building Afghanistan, a task called nation building. This meant training new Afghan soldiers and police, supporting elections, and trying to create a government that could survive after the United States left. Billions of dollars went to schools, clinics, and new roads. Aid experts and military officers worked side by side. They hoped that a strong Afghan state would stop the Taliban from coming back. But nation building was harder than expected. Afghanistan had few roads, little electricity, and a weak central government. Many villages had never seen a policeman or teacher from Kabul. Local warlords acted like kings in their own regions. This shift in mission, from fighting terror to building a country, raised new questions. How long would the United States need to stay? What did success really mean? As the years went by, clear answers proved hard to find. One of the biggest problems was corruption. Billions of dollars of aid and military spending flowed into Afghanistan, but much of it disappeared into private pockets. Roads and schools were sometimes built on paper, but not in reality. Afghan officials often took bribes. Some sold government jobs to the highest bidder. A big issue was the problem of ghost soldiers. On paper, the Afghan army had up to 300,000 troops. In reality, tens of thousands were fake names, added so the commanders could steal their salaries. When the Taliban attacked, many real soldiers lacked pay, food, or even bullets. The Afghan police and courts were weak. Many citizens saw them as unfair or corrupt. This made it hard for the central government to earn the trust of the people. When Afghans needed help, they often turned to tribal leaders, not the state. Corruption and weak institutions made it easy for the Taliban to say that the government was fake and only served outsiders. For many Afghans, daily life did not improve, and trust in the government faded. By 2005, the Taliban were regrouping. They used safe havens in Pakistan to plan attacks inside Afghanistan. The Taliban offered simple justice, quick decisions, and a sense of order in some rural areas, something the Afghan government often failed to provide. The Taliban also used local anger against foreign soldiers. US and NATO troops sometimes killed civilians by mistake in airstrikes or raids. Each loss created new resentment. The Taliban promised to protect Afghan traditions and cast themselves as freedom fighters against occupation. Taliban fighters moved at night, planting bombs and attacking police posts. They told villagers that the Americans would one day leave, but the Taliban would always remain. Many Afghans, tired of war and unsure of the future, tried to stay neutral or quietly supported the Taliban. By 2010, the Taliban controlled or contested about half the country. Their return showed that military power alone could not win hearts and minds, especially when the Afghan government was weak and unpopular. As the war dragged on, US leaders changed strategies again and again. Sometimes they sent more troops, hoping a surge would beat the Taliban. Sometimes they talked about leaving quickly. Each new general brought a new plan, but the end seemed no closer. The 2003 invasion of Iraq pulled away resources and attention. US forces and money shifted to a different war, leaving Afghanistan with fewer troops and less focus when it was most needed. Many Afghans felt abandoned. Taliban attacks grew bolder. At home, Americans grew tired of the endless conflict. The war became the longest in US history, costing over $2 trillion and more than 2,400 American lives. Afghan casualties were even higher. By 2015, the US goal had shrunk from building democracy to simply stopping total collapse. The constant change in strategy made it hard to win trust, both in Afghanistan and at home. Each new plan seemed like a sign that nothing was truly working. In 2020, the US signed a deal with the Taliban, promising to leave Afghanistan. The Afghan government was cut out of most talks. Many citizens feared what would happen next. In August 2021, as the last US troops prepared to leave, the Taliban swept across the country in days. Afghan soldiers often ran or surrendered without a fight. The government in Kabul collapsed. President Ashraf Ghani fled. Crowds rushed to the airport, hoping for a way out. Images of desperate families and of US soldiers helping evacuate thousands shocked the world. More than 120,000 people were airlifted in the final days, but millions were left behind. Girls' schools closed. Women lost jobs. Many who had worked with Americans or the government hid in fear. The cost was huge. Over 47,000 Afghan civilians, 66,000 Afghan soldiers and police, and 2,400 US troops were killed in 20 years of war. For many, the end came quickly, but the pain and questions remain. The war in Afghanistan teaches many lessons. The first is that military power has limits. Winning battles does not mean winning peace. Changing another country's government and society is always hard, especially when that country has its own deep history and divisions. America's goals were noble: to stop terror, to help Afghans, to build a better future. But the problems were bigger than they seemed. Corruption, weak institutions, old rivalries, and outside influences all played a part. Sometimes US actions made things worse even when people meant well. Afghans paid the highest price. Many dreamed of peace and a better life. Many lost everything. American soldiers too gave their lives and hearts in the hope of helping others. Their sacrifices matter, and their pain should be remembered. In the end, Afghanistan shows that lasting change must come from within. Outsiders can help, but cannot decide the future for another nation. The world must learn from these hard lessons to act with humility, patience, and deep respect for the people whose lives are most affected.